Welcome to Research Review. Our main emphasis today will be on our research methodology and designs. But we'll start from some of the quiz questions. So question number 16. Which of the following is an ontological question? A, should I use questionnaires or interviews in my project? B, can I and should I be considered acceptable forms of knowledge? Okay. Okay, this question was not clear, but the concept here we must understand is that there are three types of questions that we must know. They're what we call ontological, epistemology, and methodological questions. So ontology looks at what reality is, whereas epistemology looks at what is knowledge, and methodology looks at how do we study it. So questions to do with questionnaires or interviews that are the how questions that to do with what? Methodology. Questions to do with acceptability of knowledge. So what is acceptable knowledge? That is epistemology. It's a what question. So in ontology, basically when you have questions to do with what really exists, or is it really objective or created by people? An example is society real on its own, or is created by people? So at least that there's no answer on those ones there. Okay, so let's go to question number 17. The constructionist ontological position suggests that A, social phenomenon and their meanings are constantly being accomplished by the social actors. B, individuals are born in a world of rules and structure that cannot change. C, buildings and construction works prevents an idea of opportunity to exercise the sociological imagination. And D, social facts and objects have an external reality independently of the people who perceive it. So to understand that, we must also understand the concept of what? Constructionism. Our answer, by the way, is A. So the simple idea behind constructionism is that reality is created by people through interactions. We understand that society is not fixed and people build meanings daily. Okay, so constructionism means that reality is created by people through interaction. So there's easy understanding that society is not fixed and people build meanings. For instance, respect means different things to different cultures because people create meanings. Others um, may have a different interpretation of what could be good or bad with others. Okay, so let's go to the aspect of qualitative research. Qualitative research actually focuses on understanding meanings and experiences and opinions. So qualitative research actually uses words and not numbers. It builds from theories, um, which is inductive reasoning. So an example is when you're interviewing people about their experiences. So let's look at this question. Question number 18. The qualitative research strategy places value on using numbers, measurements, statistical techniques, no? Generating theories through inductive research about their meanings, conducting research that is very high quality above all. So our answer is B. Okay, so our answer is B. So let's look at the next part. Which of the following is an example of value-free research? Which is an example of value-free research? Okay, so I must explain something about value-free research is that it's not what? It's not influenced by personal opinions. In reality, value-free research is very difficult or almost impossible to completely have. Okay, so let's look at the options that we have there. What is value-free research? Which of the following is an example of value-free research? Uh, Conscious partiality, sympathy for the underdog, and structured interviewing, none of the above. So the actual answer is none of the above. Um, None of the above. So value-free research means personal. It means what? Personal values do not influence findings. So conscious partiality explicitly takes a side. So simplicity. So our answer is all of the above. Okay, none of the above. Okay, because I've talked about what value free research is. It's simply research that is not influenced by personal opinions. So those options are wrong. Like taking sides, A is bias, sympathy, it has emotional bias. C, method only, it does not guarantee what neutrality. So answer is D or the above. Okay, then we're going to look at what? An important practical issue to consider when designing a research project. So I must mention, before we even answer that, that practical research issues, before doing research, we need to always ask, do I have enough money? Do I have enough time? Why is it important? Because time will determine the scope and money will affect the tools and data collection. So let's look at this question now together. An important practical issue to consider when designing a research project is which theoretical perspective you find most interesting, whether or not you have enough time to retitle bathroom first, see how much time and money you have to conduct the research, and D, which color of ring binder to present in your work. So our answer is what? C, how much time and money you have. Because these are practical constraints. We have time, we have budget, we have resources. Often these ones determine what research um, is possible. So time affects whether you're going to conduct a longitudinal design, which takes over time. Money will affect the sample size and the choice of transcriptions and software. Right. So let's look at our research designs. So a research design is simply a blueprint or a plan of your study. In the research, it includes your data collection. It also includes your sampling. It includes your data analysis. It includes your timeline. All right. And when we're talking about repeatability, it talks about consistency, having to test the same test and you get the same results. We talked about internal validity, which basically answers or asks a question, did X really cause Y to happen? So it's like you're studying to increase your grades, and did studying actually increase your grades or there's something else? So we're looking at what we call internal validity, whether X affected Y. We also looked at the aspect of trustworthiness, that in qualitative research, we don't use validity, we use trustworthiness. And trustworthiness includes credibility, transferability, dependability, and confirmability. So now, regarding questions to do with research designs, so what is a research design? A way of conducting research that is not guided by ungrounded theory, the choice between using qualitative and quantitative methods, the style in which you present your work findings, e.g. a graph, a framework, for every stage of data collection and analysis? So our answer is D. Research design is simply what a framework for every stage of data collection and analysis. So research design is a logical structure which connects the research questions to the data collection. It includes sampling methods, timelines, ethics, analysis. It is not a theoretical thing. It is a framework. If a study is reliable, what does it mean? A, it was conducted by a reputable researcher who is trusted. B, the measures devised for the concepts are stable on different occasions. C, the findings can be recognized, be generalized to other social settings. And D, the methods are stated clearly enough for the research to be replicated. So answer is B. Reliable means what? Measures devised so the concepts are stable. Even if they were to be done several times, the aspect of consistency is not an issue of truth. It's having to produce the same result over and over. If you have a 40 scale, it is reliable on the fact that it's giving you the same results over and over, not that they are true. Okay? So a reliable measure gives you the same result under consistent conditions. Then takes us to validity. Validity refers to A, whether or not there is really a causal relationship between two variables. B, whether or not the findings are relevant to the participants in daily life. C, the degree to which the researcher feels that um, this is worth the project. And D, how accurately the measurements represents the underlying concepts. So our answer is A. Validity refers to whether or not there's really a causal relationship between the two variables. Okay, so that is what internal validity means. Okay, it asks whether the observed effects generally cause the manipulated variables or could something else explain them, right? So the threats here include history, maturation, selection, bias. Let's go to research designs. So Lincoln and Cuba of 1985 proposed an alternative criteria for evaluating qualitative research could be A, impressiveness, B, trustworthiness, C, joyfulness, messiness. It is trustworthiness. So they argued that the validity or reliability, which was developed for quantitative research, are inappropriate for qualitative research. So these are only valid for uh, quantitative. So the proposed are trustworthy with the four components: reliability, transferability, dependability, and confirmability. These ones were developed mainly for quantitative research and not qualitative research. So that is our answer. Okay. We talked about naturalism. Naturalism can be defined as, so before I look at the options that we have, we, in simple terms, define naturalism as the study of people in their real life environment. For instance, observing behavior in a community, not in a lab. Okay, we also looked at aspects of independent, dependent variables. What is an independent variable? It is a cause factor. A dependent variable is the effect. So dependent is what you are measuring. For instance, time and exam score. Your independent variable is time, and your dependent variable is the exam score. We also looked at the cross-section on the types of research designs. We have the cross-sectional research design where data is collected at one point in time. So a survey done today across many people. We also have a survey research, which is simply um, because they are all one time. It's an example. Surveys are good for generalization. They're not good for cause and effect. We also looked at panel and cohort. Okay, panel and cohort. So as we As we look at these quiz questions, you need to also understand context so that you're able to relate even if the question is manipulated. So naturalism in research is a approach that focuses on what? Studying people in their natural environment without controlling or manipulating any conditions. It's actually observing reality as it happens. So researchers do not interfere with what people are doing. Instead, they observe their real life behavior, their settings in their homes and their schools. The idea in realism is that there's a real world, there's no lab, the behavior is observed, is not contrived. It's important because it gives you realistic data and shows you how people behave every day. Okay, so naturalism is studying how people behave in their normal sense. Then we also have variables we talked about. Variables, now conceptual framework, we have two main variables, the dependent and independent. The dependent is what effect you want to measure, and the independent is the cause, what you want to change. So the meaning of dependent basically is the outcome, the result of your study, what the researchers want to measure. So DV means what? Dependent variable, which is the result. The DV changes because the IV changes. For instance, you're looking at the effect of studying time on an exam. So independent variable is the studying time. The dependent variable is the exam score. All right. Then you also need to look at the research designs, or what we call the cross-sectional research design, which we talked about. It happens at one point in time, but from different people or groups. The idea here is that it's a snapshot of reality. It's a one-time data collection. There's no follow-up time thereafter. So the purpose of this kind of research design is to understand the situation from a specific moment, but to compare groups and identify the characteristics. So example of such is surveying people in a town today about health habits. So you want to ask students about their daily habits during the semester. So data is collected once only, not repeatedly. The limitation with this kind of study is that it cannot show the changes over time. It cannot prove cause and effect. Then also we have what we call survey research. It uses questionnaires or interviews to collect data. The features are that it has a structured questionnaires, it involves large groups and produces numeric data. The advantages or strengths is that it's good for generalization and it's cost effective and it's used to describe trends. The limitation is that it is weak in cause and effect and responses may be biased and inaccurate. And why can't it cause causality? Because there are no control variables in that kind of study. We also looked at panel and cohort studies. The panel will show same individuals over time, same people, repeated measures, and it will track what the changes. An example of a panel is where you're studying 100 students every year to track their performance. And the cohort is simply a study that follows a group of people who share some characteristics. Same group, age, birth year, individuals may change over time, but it focuses on the specific groups, not individuals. So we have same people born in 2000 over time, and also we can look at nurses who graduated in the same year. All right. So now let's go through our questions as we answer.
Bro, that's the thing.
Any questions? Are there any questions so far?
No. It's clear.
Okay.
So now let's answer the questions here. In an experimental research design, the dependent variable is one that is not manipulated and in which any changes are observed, one that is manipulated in order to observe the effects, the measure of the extent in which personal values affect the research, an ambiguous concept whose meaning depends on how much is defined. So our answer already is A. The experimental design, the dependent variable is not manipulated. Okay, it's the outcome. It's independent that is manipulated. So what is a cross-sectional design? A cross-sectional design, a study of one particular society, B, one that is devised when the researcher is in a bad mood, C, collection of data from one point, then one case in a moment in time, and C, comparison of two or more variables over a long period of time. So cross-sectional design is C, collection of data from more than one case point in time. So we talked about a cross-sectional design being a snapshot at a single point in time, but describes correlations that cannot be establishing causality. Then what is a survey? A survey research is cross-sectional and therefore A, has high replicability but low internal validity, B, high internal validity but low in validity, and C, high ecological validity but low in external validity, and D, none of the above. So our answer is D, none of the above, because they're high in replicability, which is correct here, and also high in external validity. Okay, but low in um, internal validity. Okay, so option A is partially correct, but it needs some rephrasing at some point. So answer is D. Then cohort and panel designs differ in that A, cohort studies involve quantitative research, whereas panel studies are qualitative. Okay, that's not correct. B, panel studies do not need rules to handle new entrants to households. Not correct. Only cohort study will suffer from sample attrition. And D, a panel study can distinguish between age effects and a cohort effects, but a cohort can only detect the aging effects. So our answer is D. A panel study can distinguish age effects and cohort effects, but a cohort design can only detect aging effects. Okay? The reason is that cohort studies will follow group defined by experience, but may sample different individuals. We talked about nurses that were graduating in 2000. It could be different people, but just fixing within the same particular period of time. Then cross-cultural studies are an example of case study, comparative study, experimental study, longitudinal study. The answer is B, comparative study. So comparative studies involve you comparing two or more cases. So cultural uh, studies, we are looking at different cultures from different countries, time periods, and therefore qualify to be under comparative research design. Okay. So any questions and concerns?